Yeah, they called that the Southern Route. And you went, well, you flew first. So we went from West Palm to Puerto Rico the first day, and then Puerto Rico to Trinidad the next, and Trinidad to Georgetown, British Guiana, and then down to Belém, Brazil, and then in Natal, Brazil. And that was the jumping off spot. And then we flew from there to Ascension Island, which is a little pile of cinders out in the middle of the Atlantic, and we spent the night there. And then the next day we flew to Accra, which is on that hump of Africa. And then we flew all the way across Africa to Khartoum. And then from there we went up to Cairo, and then we were assigned to the 12th Bomb Group, which was a part of the British well, we were attached to the British 8th Army, and flew missions in support of the British 8th Army. We also were issued British uniforms. We lived in British tents. We were on British rations. That was the worst part of it, because they didn't feed those limeys too great. But they sure knew how to fly missions, because they'd been flying back and forth across that desert fighting the Germans for a couple years before we got over there. And our first missions that the 12th Bomb Group flew were at the Battle of El Alamein, if you ever heard of that. But that's when the British turned things around and Montgomery started pushing Rommel back across the desert. Well, we were flying in direct support of the troops, and whatever they needed. If they knew where there was a bunch of tanks assembled or something, we'd try to knock them out, or their airfields, or a big assembly of German troops or Italian troops. But we got our orders. There was a British officer, and I've forgotten his, Cunningham, I think was his name. He had a tent right next to Montgomery's tent, and those two guys worked together, and he had as much say in what went on in that part of the war as Montgomery did. And the two guys worked together, and it worked very well. It was a new way for the air arms of armies to work with the people on the ground, and it really worked. And I'm glad I was a part of that, because when the Americans came into North Africa, they apparently weren't that well coordinated, and they had some difficulty. In fact, they had so much difficulty they moved 26 crews of the 12th Bomb Group over. We were in the 9th Air Force there. They moved us over to the 12th Air Force where the Americans were, and because they needed some help. And when they moved us over there, some of our first flights were at Kasserine Pass. I think you may have heard of that. And they wanted to see how we flew our missions. And they sent a general with us on the first missions that we flew. And we had air support from a P-38 outfit, and we never did see them. And boy, we got all shot to pieces. And in fact, the general almost got hit, and we didn't understand that. And our commander was so upset. He asked that we get British fighter support whenever we flew our missions, and we did after that, because we'd been used to that. I mean, we would rendezvous with the British fighters, and they would be overhead, and we'd waggle our wings, they'd waggle theirs, and we knew they saw us, and we flew our missions, and boy, when the Germans attacked us, those guys kept them away, or they tried to. But we never saw, on that first mission we flew with the Americans, we never saw them. They were P-38s. We did see them when we used to rendezvous with the British Spitfires. They were always above us, so we kept looking up for 30. Then somebody said, "Oh, there they are," and they were in a little bunch, all way down below us, and we never saw them after that. And boy, we got hopped by some German Me-109s, and boy, it was bad. And that's when we asked for Spitfire protection again, and we got it, and they were good.